Hey, Mondays with Matt. Welcome, everyone. Matt, last time we were together, we were talking about taking back certain terms and redefining them for higher ed because there's a lot of confusion that's built up, right? Today, we're going to take on one of those terms. Set this one up for us. What's the next term? We want to kind of help people rethink and question and hopefully with us redefine.
Yeah, the one that I think we should touch on here is consulting versus contracting.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is everyone thinks they're getting consultants because they're paying an hourly rate and they're paying a vendor to do something, right? That isn't always the case. You're not necessarily getting consulting. You're getting the ability to design maybe a technology. The examples that I would probably give you is of architects, and then you have contractors building a house. You have folks who are putting in the plumbing, who are painting walls, who are doing the electricians. They're two different things. I believe consulting is really about having architects really redefining what you're doing, and the contractors are really the people that are designing systems and things like that. I think that's the notion that has been hijacked. And you're paying a pretty penny for having contractors when you should be paying the architects to really redefine what you're doing.
And in this context, you're not just talking about software architecture, because a lot of these software implementation firms and others have architects, but they're
Yeah.
architects of software. But you're saying, my understanding is there's strategy consulting, and then there's this implementation consulting, right? And because most of the money of the last, I don't know, 15 years, 20 years in higher ed has been spent on implementation consulting, I think the word consulting is now owned in people's minds is, oh, that's when we bring people in, pay them for 40-hour work weeks, pay them $300-400 an hour to put in our software. And that is what higher ed thinks consulting is. But you go outside higher ed, that's not what consulting is. Consulting is strategic guidance. It's telling you where the puck is headed and how to get there. It's what McKinsey does all over the world. It's like we're management consulting. We're guiding you to where you need to go. Two completely different worlds.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of money being expended on consulting, which is really contracting.
Mm.
And I think they need to reprioritize it, because when you reprioritize it to architecture and management consulting, you're starting to think about managing a campus. When you think about contractors and contracting to design, systems, you are just giving the ability to redesign a software for a transactional element like you spoke about last week.
Yeah, man, I was shocked when I joined you at Beyond and started to look at what fees are being charged, right, by these firms that are putting in software. Da, da, da. I started to see like 300, $400 an hour to do technology implementations. It's insane. It's
Yeah,
$75 an hour work.
it's
And
not even
you're
it's not
and
even
because it's under the term consulting, the assumption is, oh, we should be paying $400 an hour for people who are doing $75 an hour work. It just blew my mind.
it's not even hour. It's not the hourly rate that I think is even the biggest issue here.
Hmm.
It's the number of hours it actually expends on a campus. Meaning
Hmm.
they drop people in for 40 hours. 40 hours is a lot of
Can
time.
do a lot in
You
40
can do a
hours.
lot of and that's where Beyond is really built based on, like, hey, let's make impact in the hours right now, because consulting firms are built, the contracting consulting firms are
Yeah.
built around hours and people, so they're just dropping contractors in. But the reality of it is, a plumber doesn't sit around for 40 hours doing that. But in our world of implementation, we drop 40 hours of a consultant in to a campus because you have to utilize them, and they believe they're getting value, and they're not getting that much value for the 40 hours. So the 40 hours times, whether it's $200 or $400, is a lot of money that a school is expending. And that is one of the bigger issues we're having. I would say let's focus on architecture and then make the contractors do less hours, because you're not
Mm.
asking them to, they're not sitting around for 40 hours re-architecting
Asking
and
you a bunch of
reimagine a
questions, right?
bunch of questions. They're doing as is. I can, to be honest with you, I can do as is in any easy way, because you just are telling you what do I do today. Well, that's not what you should be really designing to. You shouldn't be designing to what you do today. You should be designing for what your campus needs for tomorrow on in designing a way that the students are experiencing better.
So, in redefining this or taking back this term consulting and helping higher education leaders say, okay, when I'm having someone implement technology for me, an important task, right? And it has to be done. Every time you buy technology, you need the vendor to bring in their
Sure.
software people to go to. Don't call that consulting in your own mind. They may want to call it consulting, but don't fall into the trap of thinking that's consulting and therefore worth the same amount of money you'd be paying to re-engineer your entire strategy for your institution or get guidance on where to go or how to be competitive or how to improve student outcomes or any of that stuff. That's a level of expertise that's different than, oh, I went to a class, I learned how to build software or how to implement someone's software. I have a certificate after 8 months of training, and I can go configure your system for you. Think
Yeah.
about the difference in expertise in configuring technology versus guiding big strategic decisions that move the needle on tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of outcome.
Yeah. It would be different if the actual implementation consulting contractors actually transform your campus to operate in a future ready model. I'd
Okay.
be like, say, hey, that's
Yeah,
worth it.
we'd
But
be on board
if,
for that.
yeah, I'd be totally
Mhm.
okay. But today, if you ask a software vendor's project manager, they're saying to you, our goal is to lift and shift what you do today into the new cloud system. And they believe that is the transformation. That is the consulting. And that isn't really
It's not
consulting.
consulting,
It's
and
not consulting at all.
That's what we want our friends in the marketplace to redefine and say, look, don't tell me you're giving me consulting. Tell me you're implementing my system. Let's agree to a fair price for it. That's all fine. But I bring in consultants who do real consulting, who drive real strategy. That's a totally different ballgame.
You should architect way before you actually paint the wall, put the plumbing in, and put the electrician in. And that's what contractors are doing today in higher ed. They're actually painting the wall. They might be designing, the flow of an as is process. They're putting in, reporting in a certain way. Those are all
They're
contracting
doing
actions.
configuration,
They're
right? Data
configuration.
migration, all that
Yeah.
stuff, which is all
But
important.
and you need skills and you need people who know
Yep.
software, and there's a value to that because there
Yep.
might be a demand. But if you don't have people who are architecting you to a future ready campus and reimagining your campus in a way that you've never thought before, hell, you're putting in millions of dollars, like, and you won't ever. And in an SIS, it happens once or twice, once a decade, maybe once every 2 decades.
Yeah.
Some of the schools I designed in 2000 are still using the same software, right? So
Yeah.
think
One
about
of
that.
the schools we're
You're
working now,
not going
35
to
years old.
redo all this SIS. So you
Right.
better think about what the future in a decade is going to be like. So you prepare yourself for that design. You need consultants who are management consulting who can architect your campus. Sure, you need software folks that can configure. Hey, I was a configurer. I put in academic standing and course catalog, and I'll be honest, what I do today in terms of reimagining a campus is a much more important role than actually configuring a software to do what I did last week.
But that's the difference, right? And you've lived in both worlds. You've been the configuration guy, putting the software in, and now you're the person providing the guidance on what to do before the software even comes in the first place, right? And that's our point. The point is both are needed, and you got to put the right resourcing behind both. But let's not confuse the two and think it's all the same, or that the configuration organization is also going to bring you the strategic consulting. They just can't. They don't have it on their bench. So you got to be able to kind of bring the two together, I think, to really get the outcomes you're looking for.
Yeah, you have
Closing
tech
thoughts from you, Matt?
you have tech contractors, and then you really have management consultants who really can transform a campus. And that's where you should prioritize a lot of what you do. We talk about the direction versus speed. A contractor is thinking about speed of
Speed.
putting a software in. When you think about a management consulting group that's actually helping you reimagine the campus, you're thinking about a consultant guiding you to design a campus a certain way. Hence, then the software could be much more easily designed because you already know it. You're not wasting 40 hours a week on a tech consultant sitting in there redesigning what you do yesterday.
That makes sense. All right, Mondays with Matt. Thank you, Matt. We'll
Yeah.
see you next week. We've got one more to go, right? One more term we want to redefine, unpack, and have people make their own decision of whether they're going to stay with the old definition or invite a new one in.
Yeah.
Have a great week, everyone.